everybody. Welcome back. Publishing Disrupted podcast. I guess technically we're in a new season. So January.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. I'm Mick Silva, editor.
And I'm David Morris, literary agent and book publisher.
And this is Publishing Disrupted. We're exploring the ways in which book publishing is changing and how writers can best meet the challenge. For two former Christian publishing professionals, we still say former professionals because, we're still trying to figure out our new roles in this disrupted landscape. But we're learning to navigate independent book market and hybrid press because David is the publisher of Lake Drive Books. And I'm still an editor trying to figure out my way too. So we just have a lot to talk about. But today we have a guest, Mr. esteemed Jeff Elkins.
Hey, everybody. It's great to be here.
He's a fiction author, editor, coach. I mean, you do a lot of things.
I wear a lot of different hats. Yeah. I've got my 14th novel will come out in March. I've written 4 books on writing dialogue and characterization, and the 5th one will come out in February. And I run a learning community called The Dialogue Doctor, which has a podcast on it. We just crossed our 300th episode on the podcast, which is feels like an achievement, but ain't nobody give me a trophy. So I don't know where the trophy department is.
You need a trophy.
I need a trophy. I got 300. I should get a trophy. But yeah, so that's me. Doing all the things. We're holding master classes and conferences and all the stuff. Yeah.
Right on, man. Yeah.
So we got to know each other, Jeff, because we were exploring a way to work together where I could publish you with Lake Drive Books, and I still would love to figure out something where we could work together.
I would love to too.
The door is always open there.
Yeah. I have to get over my terror of the evangelical space, the ex-evangelical space first, but then maybe, yeah.
But I think that's what we're all navigating right here. So the title of our podcast is Publishing Disrupted, and that there's a holistic way to look at that. Our lives are being disrupted. It's not just this industry that's being disrupted, the structures that's being disrupted, but it's also our individuality that's being disruptive, even if it's just professional individuality, but it's more than that sometimes.
Yeah.
That's what I really found interesting about you and the memoir we were working on together is your journey. You are a the phrase that comes to mind is like classically trained pastor.
Oh, I thought you were going to say disaster. I was going in a different direction. You are a complete mess. Yeah, no. Yeah, classically trained pastor.
Yeah, isn't that funny where our brains start out? And you need other good people around you to tell you that's not true.
So everybody listening right now is psychoanalyzing. Yeah, like, oh man, this one's a bag of nuts.
But you have a Baylor Master of Divinity, correct?
I got a Baylor Master of Divinity. So I was I came to writing,
which is in the heart of the Bible Belt.
Heart of the Bible Belt. I came to writing and pastor in really weird ways, and I think it goes into a little bit about what we're talking about with disruption. Is that I went to school to be a doctor, like my father. Like I was pre-med. I was doing very well in that. I had a music minor. Like I was doing all the things you're supposed to do. And then when I turned 21, about to graduate, I turned 21, about to graduate from college. My dad died very suddenly and really threw me into a loop. And had some kind of like weird supernatural moments and found myself in seminary. And so I ended up graduating from Baylor with a degree in religion and music and a pre-med emphasis, and went to Truett Seminary and got my Master's of Divinity, which again, I feel like I should have trumpets following me around with the title of that degree, but ain't nobody ever bring trumpets. And then I went worked as a pastor for 15 years and had found a lot of I can say this now. At the time I didn't see it this way, but looking back on it, I can say this now. Found a lot of very unusual success. I worked with 3 different churches professionally, and they all, like, as a full-time staff member, and then did other things on the side as well. But every church I worked with saw exponential growth while I was there. So it was by the metrics that, the evangelical church loves, I was killing it. But just really felt kind of a lot of rot in the systems and in what we were in those metrics themselves. And so, it feels like a lifetime ago, but that was my start.
So that came to a close for you in a very definite, concrete way.
Yeah,
was there sort of a precipitating?
We're done.
Was there? Yeah, we're done. Right? You're laughing.
Yeah,
laughing through the pain.
That's right. Unless we got 2 choices: we go cry or we go laugh. So I guess I told the story. It was like, and I'll stop there. So the first church I was in, we saw it blow up, but it was in like a suburban. It was a college ministry and like a college environment. And I grew up in the inner city, and I was like, man, I really want to get back to doing inner city work. So I went to this very small church plant in the middle of downtown Baltimore. It had been a church plant for 10 years, which is one of those funny things that evangelical churches do. They just keep the title of their like you ain't a church plant anymore. You're just small. But so I went downtown and worked there, and really fell in love with like working with the unhoused populations and working with the addicted populations. And the deal that I had with the church was, they had seen the work I had done at the college ministry, and they were like, oh, we want you to bring that same level of growth to us. And, there's kind of an inherent narcissism, I think, in modern pastors, which is not a radical thing to say anymore. I think that's pretty well established.
Yep. I'm publishing a book about it, by the way, and about
nice. I want to read that. Send it to me.
Gaslighting for God, spiritual narcissism is one of the
I love it. Yeah. But every pastor I worked for, or like or coached or worked with, had the like, we're going to be the next Rick Warren, we're going to be the next Phil Heibel. So they all had the like
everyone did.
Everyone did.
Well, there's also the cred of doing it in the inner city. So then you become the next Tim Keller.
Yeah, we were the big one. We were really shooting, and the Southern Baptist Convention was very excited about us, especially when we started growing. So I went there, and I was young and stupid enough to think that the exponential growth was happening was actually because of me. Like I was living in that kind of space of like, oh, I'm magic. And not realizing that it was really just environmental factors around us, that like I was in the right place at the right time and had some disciplined action that like capitalized on the environment. But we saw growth there, but then that growth came in direct contrast to the work that I was loving. So like we were seeing growth downtown, but I wanted to work with the unhoused and the addicted population, and the young families coming to the church were like, hey, we love the idea that there are these poor people here, but they kind of smell bad. We don't really want them near our kids, and can they not smoke? And it was like, and so that's a like gross summary of a complicated thing. But I ended up getting angry and feeling very disenfranchised, and I left church work for a year. I was 10 years in at that point. And my wife and I were like, we're going to go start a missional community out in the middle of Baltimore by ourselves. Couldn't get a job, worked as a secretary, worked at a box packing plant first, and then as a secretary. And we started a neo-monastic community, which was our big, like, fancy word to show how smart we were.
Yeah.
And the idea was everybody in the group had to go be on mission somewhere in the world. So my wife and I, our mission was we helped a group of parents build a charter school, which was our public, very progressive, very cool experience. We ended up working with the charter school for another 5 years, but we were, and that missional community lasted 5 years, but I was about a year into it. I was working as a secretary, and a church that was dying came to me and was like, hey, can you come help us turn around? Because I hadn't just worked at these 2 churches. I'd done a lot of consulting.
Churches die?
Churches die? What? I know. They've been in decline for 20. They don't die. They just fade away.
No.
Oh, yeah. To quote Jack Black from High Fidelity. Do great artists die, or did they just fade away? So yeah, I was there for 5 years. And I came on a 5-year contract because at this point I had seen kind of like, oh, there's a 5-year pattern in my life. Every 5 years, something turns over. So I was like, I'll come for 5 years. And it was really hard. It was really hard work, but it was great work. And we helped them kind of rediscover why they were in this community and what they were looking for. And, again, it was a great success. I've been out of that church now for 12 years and they're still growing and healthy and doing really well. Like it was a really good success. But it was then that I started writing. That was the first. I'm dyslexic. I hated English class. It was the worst for it. It was a struggle. Only F I ever made in my life was in freshman composition in college. It's the only time I ever failed a class. Yeah. But while I was working for that church, and we were like, constant arguments with their leadership, not arguments, constant hard conversations with their leaderships, constant like sitting around tables being like, hey, I recognize that you have this dream of being Rick Warren, but is that if you were to faithfully like follow use the resources you've been given and follow what you feel, God is calling you to be, is that really the end result of this? Like, is that really what this is? And so helping them kind of process their own dreams and also all the baggage of the past, because every meeting, well, back then would always come up. And so you always had to like, okay, well, it's like, all right, everybody, like, let's process this now. But so we, while I was doing that, I was in a deacons meeting and we were having a complex conversation about what is sin. And I was making a argument that breaking rituals and rules should not be considered sin. And they, one of the deacons who was my mentor at the time that I still love deeply looked at me and said, hey, you're talking a lot. Why don't you go write this down and put it in like a pamphlet or something and we'll read it later. And I thought, oh yeah, I will write this down. Now I see that he was just trying to get me to end the meeting. So, but I did. I took the next day and I wrote it all out as a fictional allegory. And by the end of writing that, I felt so good. Like it wasn't what I had said. It was the getting it all out of me and the emotional release of telling a story. Just felt great. And I was like, man, I need more of this. So I jumped online and I was like, short story, teach me to write short stories. And this guy's program came up. I took his program. It was like all these like online videos you could watch. And then like a small community post that. I took his program and I became obsessed with writing short stories. And I wrote one a night for a year. I ended up with like 300 and something.
Oh yeah, stories. I forgot this about you. You just love to you get into a zone with writing.
I'm intense. Yeah. So yeah, nothing is small.
No, and that's a good thing. People in the public.
No, it's an attribute.
Love to hear it.
It's very, I'm not the brightest bulb in the box, but it's very hard to outwork me. So yeah, I wrote one a night. It was great. Like we had at that point, I had 5 young children. And we were, living in this kind of tough neighborhood because didn't have any money because I had been bouncing around in I'd been working not in the church world and then as a secretary, which didn't pay a ton. And then doing school stuff, which didn't. So anyway, but I started publishing them. I put together a literary journal, really just to because I was like, where do I put this stuff? And I was like searching online. I was like, how to submit work. Mm-hmm. And I looked at it. I was like, those gates are too hard to get through. I was like, I'm not going to be accepted by those gates. I was like, but I do want to share my work. So I just put my own thing up. I was like, this is it. And I just on a whim said like, oh, I'll take submissions. And that opened the floodgates. Evidently, there are a lot of people at that point looking to submit, which has changed radically because we just tried to do it again. And
when was this, Jeff? Was
this was 2011?
Oh, okay.
20. No, I'm sorry. This was 2013.
Okay.
It was 2013.
Not too long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you opened the floodgates and
Yeah. And so I ended up for like a year on the side kind of managing this literary journal. We had 7 regular contributors, and we were publishing like 2 to 3 stories a day. It was a lot of fun. And but I got an offer. I ended my 5-year stint. This was the last year of that 5-year stint at that church when I started writing this stuff. And another organization came to me and was like, "Hey, it was another Christian organization. They're like, we are also struggling and dying. You have a reputation now of like walking into places that are falling apart and helping them grow. Can you come do the same for us?" And I was like, this sounds great. It was a nonprofit, so it wasn't a church. I was like, oh, this could be my exit from church, because I was tired of church. And I was like, but I can still be on mission in the world. This would be great. And I'd written my first novel, but I hadn't published it yet. It was in a drawer. And when they hired me, they came to me and they were like, "Hey, we just want to tell you, we want you to work here, but we don't like the fact that you publish things, because we're nervous the brand of our nonprofit will be associated with your fiction, and some of it's really dark and some of it's really, scary." I'd written a bunch of horror pieces. I'd written some like psychological thriller stuff, and they were like, "We don't like that, how that reflects on us." And I was like, well,
that's just crazy. I'm sorry. You gotta just
it is. It's crazy.
Jump in and say that outright.
And it was a huge red flag. Yeah. But at the time I was, you really want to make things work.
Right.
And you'll lie to yourself to be like, oh, I really want this to happen. I really want this to. Yep. And so I told myself,
you want the professional development, you want the credibility, you want the paycheck.
Yeah. You want the paycheck.
It's hard to give up. Yeah.
Well, you want the meaning in life. I think the hardest thing of leaving church work, it took me a decade to get over. But the hardest thing of leaving church work for me was my life, my profession had calling, purpose. I was part of a bigger design. And I was living out some like heroic narrative. And in the absence of that heroic narrative, you are forced to deal with the present. And the present isn't as glamorous. It kind of sucks. So without the hero's journey you're on, it's like, oh, I have to find value in making breakfast for my kids this morning. And it's just a different world. And so I wasn't at the time back then ready for that. I wasn't prepared. This was, 11 years ago. So giving up the writing that had brought me emotional health in order to maintain my personal hero's journey and the story I was telling myself was, for me at the moment, worth lying to myself about the red flags I was seeing in that organization. But it didn't work out, because we had, again, exponential growth. It went really, really well. But 3 months in, they came to me and they said, we love where you've taken the organization. You've taken it farther than we thought we'd go in 10 years. At the same time, we think you're really arrogant and we question your relationship with Jesus. So we need you to prove to us over the next month that you have a relationship with Jesus. And if not, we're going to terminate you. So I was like, how do I prove that?
Yeah.
And they were like, we don't know. We're just going to feel it. And so I asked them, we had 4 young kids at that point. My wife was 9 months pregnant with our 5th kid. And we had actually moved to a different neighborhood in a different house in order to take that job. And they said, they were like, yeah, I guess I was 7-8 months into it. And they gave me that ultimatum. So I looked at it and I was like, hey, I don't think I can actually prove that to you guys. Y'all are going to terminate me in a month. I said, so can we just,
that's never an argument you can get out of or win.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Argument. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was like, can we just drop the pretense you guys pay me for a month and I'll go look for a job?
Yeah.
They were like, yeah. So they're like, that sounds great, because we want you to leave anyway. So in anger, a week later, I published that novel that was in a drawer. And I had researched how to publish a novel. And at the time, it's changed now, as y'all know, but at the time it was like, oh, you get an agent and that agent takes you to a publisher, and it's really hard to get an agent and you have to query. And, I had looked at Query Tracker and like all the like, you email out query letters and all this stuff. And it wasn't that I was afraid of that, but I was looking at it and I was like, I am at the time in my mid 30s with 4 young children and a baby on the way. I don't have a job. The idea that I'm going to sell this novel to agents, like do all this extra work to sell this novel to agents, was insane. I was like, that's a crazy idea. So I independently published it, and I had zero money for marketing. I had zero money for anything. It was really just a like, hey, can anybody read this? It went okay for what it was. But that kind of gave me the bug, and I was like, oh, I can just do this. It's like, I'm just free to do whatever the hell I want. So, which is good and bad. Yeah, but that started really my writing journey. At that point, I went back to writing and I was like, this is something I can't give up. This is important for me.
So you talked about meaning in there and a sense of purpose and hero's journey. I think that's those are really key words. As like in the United States, religiously speaking, we placed a lot of that we place still a lot of that in our churches, and especially for white men, we place that in the idea of becoming leaders, of those churches and so on. And you were a prime example of that, and found on maybe a couple of different levels that it wasn't really working out to be as exciting a journey as you thought, even though you were found success. It wasn't bringing that sense of purpose, or you were finding friction with certain things, whether it was working with people in inner city, doing inner city work, whether it was just doing creative writing work on the side. But you found yourself suddenly out of that church system, and you got a job, like a job.
I got a job. I went to work for a training tech company. Yeah.
Because you weren't making money as an indie author yet. And still that's a challenge, of course.
Still that's a challenge.
Yeah. So the whole meaning and purpose shifting thing has been a process. Back to the idea of disruption. You're like you're still living in a disruption that's not like the classic hero's journey of becoming a pastor of a megachurch.
Yeah. And I think like, my thinking on that has I don't know if this will make sense to anybody else, but the way that I conceptualize it now is that we're seeking a sense of control of life. And we're told growing up in the evangelical church these great narratives. These narratives of like, hey,
mission.
At some point you're going to be called and you're going to go on mission, and if you're following God with faith, you can move mountains, and there should be healing, and there should be tongues, and there should be, big events, and there should be things. And so those of us that go into pastors, I think we mentioned earlier that pastors tend to draw narcissists. I think part of that is this desire to have our life follow some kind of narrative, some kind of identity. So we jump into this identity.
It's a human need.
Yeah. We jump into this identity sphere, and every identity carries with it rituals and rules, right? Like our own, even myself as a writer carries rituals and rules, right? To call myself a writer, I have to write. Like that's a ritual I have to like, and there's rules to that writing, right? Like, and when we break those rules, the writing community that we're a part of can get upset, right? Like when I will say to my community, hey, writing doesn't necessarily be about money. You can just write for love and joy. The indie author community gets a little pissed at me because that's not their rules. That's not what the rules are about.
Like, well, yeah.
It's the same in the church. Like we just developed this community with rituals and rules. The problem with a community that has an identity around rituals and rules like that is they're constantly trying to justify that they're insiders because the rituals and rules are always changing. So it creates this instability. And people like me who, we now call it deconstruction. When this was happening to me in the first church I left, the church that was downtown, really feeling put out, the word deconstruction wasn't there. But what I realized was I had to be pushed out of that community so that everybody else could justify their identity because I was challenging the rituals and rules I was trying to reform the rituals and rules. And in doing that, I was creating instability in the identity. And so that's why, like, I get it now. I don't blame them for it. I was being pushed out. In the same way, the organization I was working for that fired me, one of the things that got me in trouble, the reason they questioned my relationship with Jesus, was we were trying to solve the problem of human trafficking in our city. And so one of the teams, we had all these volunteers that needed to be put to work. One of the teams I formed was a research team. I was like, hey, who of these 200 volunteers we have to put to work, who likes to read? And I got like 15 people. And they're like, we like to read. I was like, great. Go read stuff, and we're going to meet once a week, and I want you to bring every new idea you find. Everything you see, everything people are doing that's working, let's inform what we're doing. And they found that, like, hey, if you really want to stop human trafficking, you take a twofold approach, because the countries that have done it, A, you stop punishing people selling sex, you start punishing people buying it. Right? Cut the demand, not the supply. Changes things radically. Two, so I was talking to the organization about, like, we need to shift our focus to start talking about porn addiction. And we need to stop talking to churches about human trafficking, and we need to start walking into churches talking about how many people in here are addicted to porn. Let's talk about why human trafficking happens. And then the second thing,
they loved that.
Oh, they did not. And the second thing was, you need to in some way legalize it so you can regulate it. And once you legalize it, you can regulate it, and then you can stop it. But until you legalize it, so I proposed in a couple meetings, hey, this is what the research team is finding. And that's what I was questioning, the rituals and rules of my organization, which made the identity unstable, which means I had to leave. Because so anyway, that's just a rant. But I find that,
Yeah. I think the protecting the rituals and rules is protecting an insider mindset.
100%.
I think that's really key in these disruption journeys of like, America uses church as its identity, as its place of having identity. That is historically true for us over the centuries. And I think what's happening now, as churches are receding in terms of the frequency of attendance is definitely down. Investing in churches from your personal income is definitely down. And actually even calling yourself a religious person is definitely changing. So how are we finding that those rituals and rules that are more expansive in the outside, the outside world? And I'm really intrigued. So I want to get to something really concrete with you, Jeff. I'm really intrigued what you did a few months back. You had an author exhibit.
Yeah.
So you've taken on this identity. You're the dialogue doctor. You have a podcast. You have how-to books on writing. You do writing coaching, and you started this. To me, this is like a new way of finding community and rituals and rules. That's not necessarily for somebody who used to live within churches to find the community. You're finding it, albeit
like just building the cult of authors. Yeah.
Cult of authors.
Yeah. So I would,
they are kind of cultish.
Yeah. It took me, to get to where I am now, post being fired from that organization, I got a job with a training organization that, was also struggling, was also falling apart, and came to me and was like, hey, can you help us fix this? And so I was like, yeah. And so they trained people in difficult conversations, which was a perfect alignment for me. So I kind of spent 5 years just publishing books on the side for fun, knowing that I didn't have any money to market them, and being like, this is a long tail activity. And then working for the company, and it was great. And the company has seen, really grew and had some really dynamic changing, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm still there. It's still my day job. So I've been there 11 years now. But about 5 years in, during that 5-year period, I really started to ask myself, like, what does identity mean to me outside of the rituals and rules? Like, can I find my own identity without repeating the mistakes that I had before? And I don't know if it's right or wrong, but for me, it came down to identity isn't defined by who I'm becoming, but by who I am right now. And so it's not about the hero's journey and where it's going to end and building to something, which I think is honestly kind of a lie of capitalism that it's given us, that like, the ends justify the means. But it's about who I am at the moment. And because I can't predict what's coming, all of that's really just a fantasy I'm telling myself. And I can't really reshape what happened. My reshaping of my narrative is just justifying my future desires. So what I need to do is deal with right now and who I am. And so, my family has this phrase when we left the church the first time, before, when I was working downtown and left, I had these 4 young kids, and I was like, how do I raise these kids outside of Sunday school? I had no idea. So we came up with a family motto, which was love like Jesus, have fun, and learn something. And every day I'd drop the kids off at the charter school we were building, and right before they jumped out of the car, I'd say, okay, what are we all going to do today? And they'd all chant that phrase back to me, and then they'd jump out of the car. And it's become a big, it's become kind of a defining call for us over the last 15 years. And I learned from it that, no, the identity isn't who the goals we're trying to achieve. It's who we are right now. So I've brought that into writing. So about 5 years ago, I was talking, COVID hit. I was talking to a writing friend, and I was like, I need to get back into the community. I need to I need to find a community around me. I'd love to give back to the writing world, and I need to make some money because my kids are all going to college. So he was like, you should teach people to write dialogue. He's like, your dialogue's exceptional. You work for a company that mimics difficult conversations. You should start teaching dialogue. So that's where the Dialogue Doctor came from. But the heart of the Dialogue Doctor is a learning community that is not obsessed with your end author goal, but is asking, what kind of author do you want to be right now today? And how can we help best you do that? What's the story in your imagination that you want to tell right now? And so we try to find tools and equip you with ways to tell the story that's in your head. And that's part of that. So 3 years ago, I started holding an annual thing we call Books and Brews that's in Baltimore, which, David, is what you were referring to. Where
that's it, Books and Brews. Yeah.
I quasi steal, this year I stole 27 tables from the church my wife now works for, which is a whole nother story, how she got back into church work. But they let me take their tables for a Saturday, and I go to a local bar that is like in a big warehouse, and I set up 27 tables. We advertise it for months, and I just invite publish for free. I'm like, hey, first 20 to sign up gets a table, and
gets a church table.
Gets a church table. I don't tell them that. And so, it's great. It's a great kind of community building time. People come around, they buy books. It's a lot of fun.
With a beer in their hand, they're walking around looking at books.
Beer in their hand, walking around looking at books. It's a really good time. It's a really neat event. The bar loves it because we bring a ton of people in on a day that most people weren't necessarily.
Man, we got a lot of breweries here in Grand Rapids, Mick.
I like this idea. Yeah.
It's really fun. And the bars will do it. Like, the bar does it for free. I don't pay them anything. They're just like, no, they're like, you will set up and clean up. Right.
Do they give you a free beer?
No, they don't give me anything free. Because that's part of it. Because they're like, oh, even if no readers show up to buy books and buy beer, there's 27 authors here who are going to be buying beer all day.
Yeah, that's so
right. They win regardless, right? Like, so
I was just at an open mic night last night at Founders Brewery, which, Mick, we need to go check that out sometime. And that was half of the beer buying was just people who are going to be playing guitar.
Yeah. And it's that, like, Seth Godin uses that phrase, people like us do things like this. And it's that, like, if we can remove what I'm trying to do in my own life and with the Dialogue Doctor community is remove the obsession of who you're becoming from that phrase and say, hey, people like us, we write and sell books. This is what we do. And we're going to do it today in a bar, and it's fun. And we're going to have a good time doing it. And we may never become John Grisham, and that's okay. Like, that doesn't mean we're failures, right? Like, it just means that this is who we are right now, and we're enjoying this right now. And maybe someday I will get a hit. Like maybe someday one of my novels will take off. The new one comes out in March. That'll be the one.
How did you find? You said what? 17 authors? How did you get them all in Baltimore?
All those are desperate. They are desperate to come to. The authors are so desperate.
But how did you get them to sign up? Like, how do they know about the event?
I just put it on. I went to the Maryland Writers Association has a Facebook page. I just went and I said, hey, I'm setting up a book selling event. It's free. If you got a book, here's a Google form. Sign up.
I'll bring the tables and I'll bring the tables.
You take everything. You take care of everything else. You know, in the first year, we did 6 hours. That was too long. It was 6 hours at a table. Wow. It was good. People rotated through. I had 15 authors for 6 hours. But there were some real low points, and authors got tired of sitting at a table for 6 hours. So we're like, hey, so now we do 2 shifts of 3 hours, and there's a grand changeover at 3 hours. And I try to tell everybody, like, look, you are not going to make your year's income at this event. That's not what we're doing here. This is a good time to meet readers, to have fun, have a giveaway at the table, have a newsletter sign up. People are going to walk by and not buy your book. They're going to say they want to go buy it online, whatever. It doesn't matter. You're building a community of local readers. And
you're in touch with real life people for a moment, and you're away from your screen, you're away from your desk. And
I think, talking about publishing disruption, this is one of my theories. I think Amazon's told us a lie, which is scale is success. And, the indie author community, of which I am a firm part of and I deeply love, and I'm not criticizing, just commenting on us. We have been led to believe that if you don't become McDonald's with 1 billion customers served, then you are a failure. And that's, the like 20 books to 50K crew, which dominated the indie author conversation for so long, you used to rank yourself based on sales by what kind of fish you were. Are you a minnow? Are you a salmon? Are you plankton? Are you a whale? And it was all about like how much sales you have. And events now for indie authors even structure them around those sales rankings. And there's this big idea. It's almost as if writing and telling stories is the same as real estate. And how many houses did you sell this year? And so it's just but it's that lie only rewards Amazon. That's a lie that Amazon has led us to believe. You can make a decent living with writing, 2 to 3 books a year if you'll do the work to build a local community around your work. And those people exist, and they're in the world, and we don't know them because they're not speaking at conferences, because they don't care to ever be McDonald's. And there's it's just like in my neighborhood, we have 10 local restaurants. Are they failures because they haven't franchised? Oh, they're great. I love my local Italian restaurant. It's fantastic. We go there all the time.
Honestly, Jeff, it's why they're good, right?
Yeah.
Because they haven't franchised.
Something is lost when you start writing for the algorithm of Amazon and not for actual readers that you can see their face. There's something different. I'm not going to say lost. I'm going to say different about that work. And I think we've been told because there was this giant bubble that's now popped around independent author sales. I think we've bought into the lie of the bubble that is the only way to write and make money, or that making money is the only goal of writing. And both of those are untrue. And so, anyway, now
you're talking about like indie publishing. So that became a thing. I don't think a lot of authors even quite realize it. Probably some who are in the fiction world do, but indie publishing, like in the last 5 years ago, it became really quite a thing. It was Kindle Unlimited, or I forgot what else was going on. There was, and you talked about, you just mentioned it's about writing 2 or 3 books a year, which is a lot of books to write.
No, it's about a book a month. So when I came into publishing in 2014 when I was making that shift and about to publish my first book. I had the choice of trying to go traditional, grab it with what was called then traditional, grab an agent, find an agent that will represent me to a major publisher and pray to God that major publisher will publish my book. And that was kind of seen from the author perspective as the ticket. Now, y'all in publishing knew that like you could publish a book and it's not going to get you any money and you may never get another offer. But from the author's perspective, that was like, oh, if that happens, I've made it.
Right.
And we all knew the real way to do that was to get an MFA and move to New York and work for a publishing house and make the connections and network. So what was happening then and what is still really strong now on like that side, David, do you want me to talk about this? Because I can talk about this. Like, I'll talk about this for an hour.
Well, I think a lot of our listeners are also, I mean, we could even do a part 2, but let's try to touch on it at least.
Okay.
A lot of our listeners are aspiring authors, but also I think it's folks don't actually quite realize the literary cultures and the way you create discoverability. Like you just said, get an MFA and move to New York, and then you build a network. When it comes to the fiction stream, that is one known way of doing something, especially with upmarket fiction, literary fiction, perhaps. Yeah. But then also there's like more genre fiction, like being a romance writer for Harlequin, and that's getting into their stream. And their stream is about the fact that as a publisher, they know how to get to retailers and they know how to get to readers through more of entertainment reading. Yeah, rather than the author's credibility and platform necessarily, I'm thinking nonfiction authors.
Yeah, and from the author's perspective, in 2014, it still holds true. It was all about who you know to get into that traditional,
right?
Whether it was romance, publisher, sci-fi, or
and then you get the good media.
And then you get the good media, and you get distribution, and you get their booksellers who are like running around trying to sell books to bookstores for you. And the idea was, but everybody knew that getting in that was like becoming an NFL quarterback. It was like, the top 0.1% was going to do that.
And then bookstores fell apart, media fell apart in the digital marketplace. It's not as strong as it used to be.
Yeah, and it was already falling apart. In 2014, it was already falling apart, but the identity exists. The rituals and rules continue to exist even when the substance behind them isn't there anymore. And all these conferences started to build up that are still very popular, which are like you pay $20 to sit with an agent for 10 minutes or less than that, 5 minutes. And you have a 5-minute pitch fest. And that agent is being paid to be at that conference to listen to your pitch. So the incentives are all off, right? And then the other side was, okay, ignore them completely. Go the original truth, but then became kind of a myth was you can go direct to readers. And what's going to happen is the great, glorious Amazon algorithm knows exactly what readers want. So if you can write to the Amazon algorithm will put you in front of readers and you can go directly to readers and you don't need this whole system over here. And so that was very true in like 2011 to 2014 because there wasn't a lot of people doing it. And so like people could write 6 books a year, build this giant, growth arc on Amazon. And at that point, the Amazon algorithm was like, oh, people love this guy or this woman writing this romance book. So then anytime you posted on Amazon was like, here's another one. And you could make this large. But by 2015, 16, 17, what we now know is there were so many people doing that, supply majorly outweighed demand. And it became what we call pay to play, where in the indie author community, you now had to pay for Amazon ads. And for a couple years, Amazon ads worked. And like if you were paying for Amazon ads, you then vaulted to the top of the algorithm. You could go direct to readers. Like you could build this, at least 3-year career, if not long-lasting career. What they discovered was the problem with that going direct to readers through the algorithm is there had to be a consistent stream of new product. So you needed a consistent stream of books. And with supply increasing, that consistent stream of new books needed to get bigger and bigger. So at first, the indie author community, when I first came in, the indie author community was like 2 books a year. Within like a year of me being in the indie author community, there were like 5 books a year.
Mm-hmm.
Now people are like a book a month.
Mm-hmm.
And in the last year, I know authors that are putting out a book a week. In fact, Amazon just put a cap on you cannot publish more than 30 books a month. That's crazy for Amazon to make that rule and spend the time to program it into their algorithm.
Initiated,
it means there's enough people.
The AI movement too.
Yeah, there's enough people publishing 30 books a book a day.
AI is the only way you can do that.
Yeah, but they're like, we've got to stop this. So, but in that indie author space, publishing a book a day using AI to write it, publish it, create the cover, create the marketing materials in a day is just the natural evolution of the rituals and rules that we set up for ourselves in that community. Because the win was more sales means you're a better author. And to get more sales, you write faster, write fast, publish, repeat. That was the drive. So you have these two very distinct communities. And now over the last 10 years, I feel like in the middle, all of these gray areas have arrived. There's hybrid publishers, David, like you, that are kind of like, hey, you don't go to an agent, come to me. I'm a professional. I'm going to work to help you produce the book of your heart. That's like this beautifully crafted thing that you thought was kind of the promise of traditional publishing that only the 0.1% got into. We're going to open that up to more people. And on the indie side, there's people that are like, hey, pay me $8,000 and I will coach you to write your book in, 2 months. And then I will show you how to publish it and put it out. You may not get the book a day type money, but we will indie publish your book and you can use it. And so like now we're in this, because that bubble popped because supply so outweighed demand, we're in this weird space now of chaos. And that's why with the Dialogue Doctor community, I'm like, hey, focus on the craft, tell a great story. If you want to use AI to tell an amazing story and be present in the work you're in right now. Find what you want from the work right now. Stop trying to game the future because it just doesn't work. It's all smoke and mirrors. And it's like
you did say that you can publish a few books a year and start earning a decent living. How does that look for an indie fiction author?
So for an indie fiction author, it looks like finding the people, finding your community and building a tribe, which is what it's honestly always been. The Amazon algorithm promised a shortcut to, hey, you don't actually have to build a tribe. We'll build it for you.
But finding your people and they are part of the group through what mechanism? Because they've read your past books, because they follow you online.
So ideally, it's like any other product. You sell something to somebody for the first time and they like the product is high enough quality. They like it enough. It meets enough of their needs, or they like the story behind the product and the narrative of you so that they become a loyal customer. And then you keep in contact with them. And every time you produce something, they're there to buy it. Just like a restaurant in a neighborhood, or just like that's the base economics behind it is like, hey, I'm building a base of loyal customers. I'm communicating with them consistently and drawing them into buying the new product. And there's that like twofold of customer acquisition and customer retention.
So would you say email lists are really important then to indie fiction authors?
Customer retention.
Yep.
Email lists are key for customer retention. The mistake indie authors make a lot is they think email lists are customer acquisition. They're not, right? You can have the greatest email list in the world. Yeah, you can be writing the greatest emails in the world and 2 people are reading them. If you don't have customer acquisition, and customer acquisition is the hard thing. So like Books and Brews is a customer acquisition activity. It's like, hey, I'm going to set up at my local bar. I'm going to call on local readers. I'm going to meet them face to face, and I'm going to invite them to be my customer. My writing partner, JP, had a really successful Kickstarter this year. There's a group of people who like to buy books on Kickstarter. They like artistic books with beautiful illustrations and gilded covers. So JP taught himself to do that.
Yeah.
He was like, here are the ways that I produce that kind of book. And once he learned, he went to Kickstarter and he was like, hey, customer acquisition, you like books that are like this. I'm selling books that are like this. They bought the book. that got them on his email list and got him in his ecosystem. I think email list is a little limiting now because he sends videos. He's like, communicating with them in ways that are natural for his brand to communicate with them. And they are now customers that he can sell the next book to. And what's nice is when you start building that customer base, he has trad publishers now coming to him saying, hey, we would like to work on your next book. There's a customer base here we'd like to,
and he's saying, oh, now you want to come, now that I'm making money on my books.
Yeah, well, and there is a cynicism around it, but and he's actually done a great job, and other authors I talk to, they're in that place, do a good job of being like, I'm not going to be bitter about this. I'm going to ask myself, what can I not afford to do? What can I get? What enhancement to my product can happen that wouldn't happen if you didn't come along? So like audiobooks are crazy expensive, especially if you're like getting a human narrator to do them.
Mm-hmm.
JP's books are long because Kickstarter likes long books. So he's like, I can't afford to have these made. I'll let you publish the next one, and let's also throw in there a share of audio rights for all of the audiobooks. And
but he's also getting less per book royalty in that scenario.
He is, but he was getting zero audiobook royalty before. So any audiobook royalty is, and I think the hard thing is if you transition into making your writing a business, you have to start thinking about it as a business. You're producing a product, customer acquisition, customer retention, and the customer acquisition is always changing. Like the TikTok has been the place for the last kind of year and a half of customer acquisition. There's still people finding a lot of success there, but this supply is starting to outweigh the demand.
And they've been finding success there. I'm hearing what's been working is authors who do obviously TikTok is a video format, and they'll do things like they'll actually even like play their characters a little bit, or they'll read from their books, or
TikTok has its own trends and its own ecosystem. And so if you're going to go acquire customers from that ecosystem, you have to put yourself in a mindset of constantly learning what they want. So like authors that I know that are successful on TikTok right now post 3 to 5 times a day. And it's about volume. It's not necessarily about quality. There's things that TikTok algorithm likes. Like right now, TikTok just started recently in the last like 3 months doing a grid with pictures. Those authors that are trying to acquire customers on TikToks saw that feature and immediately started using it because they were like, oh, the algorithm is promoting this feature. I need to let the algorithm know.
Oh man, this is like savvy that is beyond most of us.
But do you understand? But it's just, just customer acquisition and customer retention.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so if you don't like customer acquisition on TikTok, set up a table at a bar.
Yep.
Right. Like, or Johnny B. Truant, who actually was part of the crew that coined the phrase write fast, publish, repeat, just wrote a book on write fast, publish, repeat is dead. Don't do that anymore. And his book is on find ways to sell in person.
Who's that again?
And Johnny B. Truant.
Johnny. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. I'll shoot you an email with his stuff. And his, you should have him on. He'll come talk about it. His direction has been, I don't even go to like book fairs anymore. He finds like, oh, there's a, LARPing conference happening where they're doing like live action role play. And I happen to have this fantasy book. I bet there's fantasy readers doing that live action role play. I'm going to ask them if I can put up a table outside of that live action role. I'm going to be the only author there. I'm going to be the only person selling books. And I'm going to put a table right there because I bet these people who like this thing will also like, I can find some that like my book.
Yeah.
Customer acquisition.
That's creative. That's creative community building.
Yeah.
Or rather creative community participation. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. It's about like, figuring out if you think of your product as like Godin would say as a tribe of people, what is that tribe doing outside of reading your book?
Yes.
Because there's more people doing that thing too. And they would probably also read your book. So it's that
Well,
like,
ideally, you'd already be a LARPer if you're, writing fantasy or fiction,
you
sci-fi.
at least know about the community, right? Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So you're like part of that already. Yeah, and I see that work really well because you're not, kind of like trying to transpose what you do with what they do. It's just natural.
Yeah. And it's that I kind of see playing the Amazon game with the algorithm of writing to tropes that Amazon likes. So like the way you play the Amazon game, since we're talking about it, if people don't know, is you go to the top 10 sold, usually top 10 free or top 10 sold under a specific genre. So you look like, romance, Amish romance. You're like, I've read an Amish romance book. I liked it. I would like to write an Amish romance book. So you go to Amazon, you find the top 10 books that are selling right now in Amish romance. You read all of them and you look for the tropes that are in them. Or I know authors who give them to Google Notebook LM and say like, hey, tell me the tropes across all these books. And they'll give you back a list. You can honestly just Google it. You can find your list of like Amish romance tropes. And they will and then you write a book to those tropes. And the authors that are really in this world are like, hey, get as close to the number one sellers as you can, down to creating a pen name where if their name is, Marie Claire, your name should be Khmer Marie, right? Like getting as close to as searchable to them as you can get. Covers need to look the exact same. Book needs to feel almost the exact same. You got to hit all the same tropes. You're writing just a different version of the same book, right? Like they have the Big Mac. Like, what was that joke in Coming to America? They have the golden arches. I have the golden humps. Like, that's kind of what you want. Like, you're trying to and so you want to write that, you want to hit that vein and then get as many of those out as you possibly can. Usually you try to publish all three at one time, like your first three at once. And then you better have that fourth one coming in a month after the third one drops. But having three ready, having three in the chamber and then one to go allows you to like roll into that algorithm. So
again, this is playing the Amazon algorithm.
This is playing the Amazon algorithm
if
game.
you want to do that. Yeah.
What you're doing when you play that game is you're saying, I don't want to acquire customers face to face. I don't want to acquire customers in strange places. I don't want to think creatively about acquiring customers. I want to acquire customers in a way that's already established for me. And you still got to keep them. Customer retention is a whole different thing because those customers actually belong to Amazon. So keeping them is hard.
It's definitely more churn.
Definitely more churn. But you're just skipping the customer acquisition. You're going a preset way of customer acquisition. And a lot of authors think the trad direction is the same. They think, if I get an agent and if I sell my book, I'm getting into their acquired customers. And the hard thing I think authors figure out is that's not actually what's happening there.
Yeah. No.
Right? Like they don't have a required customer base. Some publishers do, like, I always forget their name. There's a sci-fi publisher that's done really well on, I can't remember their name, on branding themselves as like these sci-fi publishers.
Microcosm in the Northwest is really well known for crafty Wicca type.
Yeah, and people read microcosm books. And so if you sell a microcosm book, there's customers there. They've already done the customer acquisition. It's a head start. But I think the hard thing is recognizing that if you want to move into writing as a business, which you don't have to, but if you want to, you do have to start thinking economically as a product and acquisition retention games. Yeah.
For you, the combination that's working is Dialogue Doctor is, you're a good teacher. You have a philosophy that's even connected to your current day job. I didn't know you made that connection. That's really cool. And you're able to generate some actual, income. And then writing is more it's below that, but it's still something where you find creativity and purpose. And
for me, we'll just keep talking economically. You're always looking for the Jim Collins good to great kind of three circles when building a business. And I learned this when I was building churches. I was like, okay, what's our personality as a church? How do we fall into these three circles?
That Jim Collins book is also like an iconic book within evangelical circles too.
It is. Oh my gosh. It's obsessive. Yeah. And so the three circles are like what you're the best in the world at, which really just means like what's your unique niche, what's your unique niche, what you where you actually make money, like what you do that actually sells, and then what drives your personal motivation, what you love. And I published really hard fiction books for 5 years, 7 years, putting out like 2 to 3 to 4 books a year, and realized that with that business, if I was going to make that into a business, I didn't actually know my circles were. And I still don't. I still don't really understand my circles. So I pulled that back from being a business and just being something I do because I love. Because I was like, if I don't know those three circles, then this business is never, I'm just going to be kind of chasing the wind. So I pulled that back. And I think I'm getting to a place where I can start it again. Maybe. I'm still trying to kind of figure
out. You don't know the circles. Does that mean you don't know your audience? Does that mean you're writing books that are genre defying? What does that mean?
It means that like I would write things and I would really dislike them.
Oh,
the audience would love them, but I'd dislike them. And or the audience would like them and I'd dislike the audience. So like for example, the second novel I wrote a version of it. It was supposed to be a dark fantasy that had was an urban fantasy that had I was trying to get to some real themes around economic instability and around mental unhealth. And so I wrote it, I gave it to some Christian friends, and they loved it. And that really pissed me off. And so the second version of it I wrote, I spent the first 4 pages using the F-bomb 24 times. I was like, as much as I wrote a character, it was like as much as he can use the F-bomb I can, because I was in a very mentally unhealthy place. And I was like, I don't want this community to be my economic engine. So I'm going to force them away. And
that's fascinating, actually.
Not the best business decision. Not the best business decision.
Right.
Yeah. And then I wrote 5 books in that series. The first 2 people really liked, but the third one's the best one. Very few people read it. Again, I didn't have any money for marketing, so I was literally just like passing out books whenever I could. The fourth, and the 5th, nobody read. Like I think there's been 70 readers in that 5th book. And so I never finished the series. It was supposed to be a 7-book series. I moved on to another series. I wrote 3 of them. I tried to write to genre. I tried to write to market, as they call it, like play the Amazon game. And I learned real quick that I was not capable of obeying the rules. So like I'd be writing and I'd be like, oh, I'm going to write. I'd read all the books in like supernatural detective stories, and I like found all the tropes, and I'd plotted out my first 4 books, and I got to write it halfway through the first one. I was like, oh, wouldn't it be fun if... And I immediately started to veer from tropes, and I gave it to a friend. I was like, who was also writing in that world. And I was like, hey, read this. He was like, you got off the tropes, man. Get back to the tropes. And I was like, the tropes are stupid. And he was like, you shouldn't do this. And so I was like, no, I'm going to do it anyway. So I wrote my 3 books in a chamber, and I released them. And they got very well received. They got all these 5-star reviews, but they didn't take off. Amazon was like, no, not these. And that's my fault. Nobody did anything to me. I did that to myself. And so then I wrote some weird novellas that I was like, these are fun for me, but I don't think anybody will actually read them. And then I wrote a book. I went back to the first novel I ever wrote, which is a fictionalized memoir, and I rewrote it because I was like, this is for my own mental health. And then a friend of mine was like, hey, do you want to, and at that point I was like, this isn't a business anymore. This is just something I'm doing. This is something I do for me. And then a friend was like, hey, you want to write this episodic serial? Amazon had just started doing Vela, which was their like, let's release serialized fiction.
Which they've stopped doing since.
Which
right?
they stopped doing in the middle of our first season, which made me angry. But he was like, do you want to write this episodic fiction? I was like, yeah. And it's a paranormal comedy that's really fun. And I have a great time doing it. So we wrote the first book. It still slowly builds a tale. Like people find it and they really like it. It's way too long. It's 160,000 words. It's a giant monster of Ghostbusters meets Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And it's a blast. And we're about to finish the second season. But
this probably be the last question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, just to land that plane. That's what I mean by like that my fiction isn't a business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not thinking about customer acquisition or retention. I'm writing things I love, and it's very healthy, and I love it, and it brings me life. And I get frustrated when I have a week where I can't sit down and write that stuff. The Dialogue Doctor is a small business, and it matches. I have my 3 circles for that. I am the best in the world at encouragingly coaching writers. That's what I bring, an encouragement, understanding of how to coach a writer. I am really good at it. And I make my living in that world by building a community of people who support one another. And what people come to me for is that I help them understand their own writing and take the characters and the dialogue that's in their head and put it on the page. And so, like, I have my 3 circles, and but they're separate things. They're not the same, and they don't feed each other. People that come to the Dialogue Doctor do not read my fiction, right? Like they don't.
Yeah, that's interesting.
They don't cross streams.
So you have different sets of circles, but you feel like the circles for the fiction are maybe coming together better or coming into clear view.
Yeah, I think like we didn't get into this, but over the problem with coming out of, I think, evangelicalism that a lot of us who deconstructed have is you have this massive self-doubt of like, maybe they're right and I am the problem. So my fiction got very caught up in that of like, and my understanding of my own writing, my understanding of who I am got very caught up in that. So for the first 7 years, I'd write something, I'd publish it. People would be like, oh my gosh, I love this one's the next one. And I'd be like, no, it's bad. No, it's not any good. No, I have to reject what I did. I have to like get away from it. I'm not going to put any money to marketing it because I don't like, it's not right. It's not, whether it's not holy or it's not, the right thing for me to be doing or whatever my excuse was at the moment, there's that oppression of I've left the narrative and I don't know who I am anymore. And when you don't know who you are, it's very hard to find those circles and to make your work into a business. So, but over the last like 3 to 4 years, actually doing the Dialogue Doctor, I've coached over 400 authors one-on-one now and help them get their books out and help them find their voice. Like that's what we do. I say we because there's more than just me coaching, but that's what we do is we find an author and we help you discover what fiction do you want to write, and we help you like make that a reality.
But can the doctor help himself?
Yeah. So after helping a bunch of other people, I've discovered like, oh, yeah, this works. This is good for me. This works for me. This is a good. I also have a voice here, and it doesn't align with the Amazon game because I'm a weirdo. And, I don't know that I actually want to sell it to an agent because that would require me to pitch myself. And I'm not really interested in that.
And to fit into pre-existing categories.
And to fit into pre-existing things. So the choice that's left for me is like, I need to settle into what I write. I need to write it well, and I need to start finding customers in weird ways. And I'm just not quite there. My life isn't quite at a place yet where I can do that. But, I'm still cranking out books, and it's fun. And by the time I get around to doing it, I'll probably have 20 books to sell, and there'll be a good.
I love it.
Yeah. So
it's a good amount of books.
But just to encourage anybody listening to this, the key isn't to align yourself with something that exists. The key is to understand what exists and then to decide whether or not you align. And that's the only way you're going to find a long-term satisfaction in a disrupted business, because it is disrupted, right? Like AI, we haven't even talked about AI. It's throwing everything into chaos, but it's that like,
Yeah. No, right. And that's the disruption, right? I think the idea that we're all being unsettled, in different ways and trying to find our way independently
but also in community, also in new communities. I think that that's something that both David and I resonate with about your story. And it really is good to hear that it is possible to find your voice and who you are in the midst of all of this just super tumultuous change. So I'm really encouraged just hearing from you with your story.
Yeah. And I think, the more you can work on being the best you are in the moment, not in the future, the easier it is to try new things. Right? Like I play a lot with AI. Like I don't write with it because I don't enjoy it. I haven't published a book with it or anything, but I have written with it because I wanted to understand how it works. Sure. And I didn't have any problem doing that because it's not, you start getting angry at people trying new things when it disobeys the rituals and rules you've set up around your identity. And if your identity is, I exist now with these people in this place, trying to be the best version of myself at the moment, then, when somebody else is like, hey, the best version of me uses this tool, I don't get mad at that. Like, it's great. Yeah. Use that tool. Yeah. Do that because we're not in competition to be the best version of ourselves right now. We're only in competition for future versions of ourselves. Mm-hmm. But if we can erase those future versions, who we are right now is compatible, not competitive. And so there's I don't have to be mad at you for writing a book a day with AI. If that is what you love and enjoy, and you can find customer acquisition and retention through it, more power to you. Go for it. That sounds great, But yeah. Anyway,
I will still hold on to a little bit that they still are ruining a very nice thing.
You're like, that's true, but you're also throwing paint in my living room and I don't like it.
Maybe do that elsewhere.
Fair. Yeah. Totally fair.
No. Yeah. Thank you.
I might also argue that Amazon was not a nice thing. That they're not actually ruining a nice thing. They're just revealing what it was to be what it was.
There you go. Yep. That's right.
Yeah.
I love the way you kind of integrate a lot of this, the economics with the spiritual and the daily. But yeah, I've had a thing for a while now to focus on your process and not the end product, right? Because we're always trying to progress and do something that's meaningful and all this. I mean, even if you're not Christian, if you're not deconstructing, you're still wanting to contribute in some way, which is just, as David, you said, that's just being a human in this world. And we need validation in those places. And yet you forget about where you are right now and you got nothing, man.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to one author I was coaching recently. They're writing a beautiful book about nursing care. It's a fictional memoir about nursing care. And they went to a conference. They were having a great time writing it. I was coaching them weekly and, they're giving me 6,000 words a week and we're looking over it and encouraging them how to move forward. They went to a conference and the conference was all about marketing and selling. When they come back to me and all of a sudden they're down and they're frustrated and they're like, this book will never sell. And I asked him, I was like, look, I go, you were loving writing this book. It was this beautiful activity. I said, if 1,000 people read it and don't remember it, you get a choice. 1,000 people can read it and not remember it, or 5 people can read it and it can change their life. Mm-hmm. Which would you prefer?
I use that one sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. And she was like, I want 5 people to read it and change their life. I was like, fantastic. Then don't go to those conferences anymore. What are you doing? Don't do that.
Yeah. That's what the conference is for. So,
and I'm not mad at the conference. They're just doing something different than you're doing. Don't, or when you're in the conference, go to the conference, learn what they're doing and go, that's not what I'm after. That's not who I'm trying to be right
now, maybe. Yeah. Maybe later down the road.
But maybe after you get your first one down, 5 people love it. Then you can write the one that you want to mass market. But, the mass marketing doesn't have to be your end goal.
Be the golden humps that you are. Yeah.
That's right. Enjoy your golden humps. Yeah. Oh, that's don't clip that and put that on TikTok. That's a bad one.
So people can find you at jeffelkins.com, dialoguedoctor.com.
You can find me at dialoguedoctor.com for writing stuff, and then for fiction, it's jeffelkinswriter.com. Although I haven't touched that website in about 4 years, so
Oh,
best of luck to you.
well,
Man.
you are a work in progress, Jeff, as we all are, and it's really fun to see. There's so many people who started out life professionally as pastors who are just really, really struggling to figure out what they're supposed to be.
So many.
And you are too, but but from many of whom I've met, you're definitely an example of someone who's taking steps. You're taking that next step. Yeah.
Appreciate your honesty, your vulnerability, your authenticity, all those fun words that we like to use here. And we don't throw them around lightly because it still matters. I mean, people got to be real. And I just thank you for being here. And
again, this was awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
It was great.
Publishing expertise is amazing too.
Well,
I learned things every time we talk.
Yeah, the chaos monster comes to the publishing world.
You've earned it.
Yeah,
good.
Good.
All right. Hey, be well. We'll talk to you later.
Okay. Thanks, y'all.